we bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one.
And good morning, everyone. This is yours truly, Dr. RG for Courageous Conversations Connects Quarantine Talks. This is July 16th, believe it or not, Thursday, 2020. We are in our 18th week of quarantine, and this is somewhere around, I don't know, episode 59 or 60 or something like that. And so welcome to the show. And we are so excited to have you on the platform. This is our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. So do me a favor, go on over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Hit that notification bell so that you'll get all the notifications as well. Tag a friend, share this video, text someone, let them know we are on this platform. Our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. We are about to have our quarantine talks. And today, we are specifically talking about, remember, we've been talking about struggling well all week. That was our topic for the week. And on Monday, we specifically talked about the mental health check-in. Yesterday, we talked about silver lining, and I gave you a charge, which I want to talk about that a little bit. The charge was, let's get gritty, right? And so we talked about grit. And everyone sort of really signed in. Charlotte's on. Good morning, Charlotte. Good morning, Stephanie. I want to hear how you've been doing in terms of your grittiness and what your grit was. And did you call someone and say, listen, how's your grit? Our grit is going to get us through to the other side. And so we talked yesterday about silver lining specifically and our grit. And we talked about the 5 quarters that we were in: first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and yes, touchdown if you get to overtime. And we listed where the quarters were, where we were in our quarters, and how we're going to execute on our grit. And so today we are talking about the art of a reset mindset. Yep, the art of a reset mindset. You all know that comes from Courageous Conversations Connect, a pathway to reset your mindset with intentional thoughts from the inside out, right? Because if you don't deal with your thoughts, right, that stinking thinking or whatever your thought process is, if you don't deal with it, sometimes it deals with you. So we're going to have a courageous conversation today, specifically about the art of a reset mindset. And I'm going to ask you to share how you dealt with your grit, right? Did you call somebody else up and say, let's get gritty? And how that grit helped to transform your day and perhaps maybe even transform your life, quite frankly. So listen, we are going to have a great conversation. Don't forget to tag a friend, share this post or this video, text someone, let them know we're on this platform at Courageous Conversations Connect Space, our quarantine talks. We're going to take a quick break. I see a lot of people coming on. I see Larissa. Good morning, Larissa. And we'll be right back. So stay with us. Hey, good morning. This is Dr. RG from the Courageous Conversations Connect space, Quarantine Talks. And we are having a courageous conversation. So you all know what we do. Today we're talking about the art of a reset mindset, right on the hinges of yesterday talking about silver lining, and earlier this week talking about sort of the mental health check-in. And so what we typically do in the very beginning as we have more people coming onto this platform. And I see Michael. Thanks for joining, Michael. I see Larissa. I don't know if my mic was muted. Y'all let me know if y'all could hear me because it looked like my mic was muted when we were doing a change with the mic. So let me no sound okay on Facebook. Do you all hear me now? My mic was muted and I needed to unmute it. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that again. It's plugged in. I just had to unmute the mic. Yeah. Can you close the door, please? Thanks. So I'm going to say that again. We're breathing in oxygen. Tell me if you all hear me. Oxygen. We're breathing out carbon dioxide. We're breathing in hope and love and joy and peace and serenity and contentment. And we're breathing out fear and worry and pain and frustration and discontent. Okay, Michael says he hears me now. Great. So tell us in the crew, it's 10:07. So we got a little bit of time. We usually do start doing our breathing exercises right around 10:10. So tell me who you're breathing for. Today, I want to breathe. Sounds good. Thank you, Larissa. I want to breathe for the Crawford brothers and their families. They were in a tragic accident. I saw that on the news the other day coming from on the Atlantic City Expressway. 2 brothers were killed. The other brother's in the hospital. The sister actually was supposed to be graduating from Penhawken High School the very next day. And even the girlfriend of the brother who was driving, she was killed as well. And so it's tragic for this whole family when we think about 1 minute you have your family members, the next minute they're gone. That's difficult to absorb or to digest. So I'm breathing for that family, along with the babies, the little children, 6 children during 4th of July weekend that were taken from us, killed due to crime. Crime is up, violence is up, shootings are up in the midst of our 2 pandemics, COVID-19 and systemic racism and the racial unrest. None of that has gone away, guys, none of it. And so we need to continue to sort of breathe in for all of those people out there that are struggling. Also, don't forget the essential workers. They're still out there in the hospitals. I actually did a talk this morning for the Gift of Life, a group of healthcare coordinators in a hospital that really needed to process themselves about the challenges that they're going through. Because just like most of us that are still having to do our jobs, if you have one, we should be grateful for that. But simultaneously, that doesn't mean that our stressors stop. And many people are stressed. So we're breathing breathing the gift of life, breathing in for those essential workers that are still out there. And many of them are not just hospital workers. They're mental health professionals and grocery store workers and pharmacy persons. There are bus drivers and ticket agents and gate agents and all those persons out there, the sanitation workers, they're out there putting themselves in harm's way in the midst of a pandemic that is not over yet. So we're breathing for them. It is now 10:10. So get in your positions, right? Put your middle finger to your thumb or your hand, one hand over the next on your lap, or your hands next to each other beside your lap. Get real comfortable. Do a little wiggle or a little shake to kind of make your back erect. And at the sound of my voice, I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to ask everyone to breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth. We're going to hold it for 8 seconds in honor of George Floyd, who had a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and then longer after the last breath left his body. We're breathing for him and his family as well, along with Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Rayshard Brooks. Angie is on. Good morning, Angie. Says I'm breathing for healthcare workers and her nephew who is a nurse. Okay. So ready, guys? Ready, crew? Connecting relationships for epic wins. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in through the nose. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. One last time, make it count, crew. Breathe in. And out. Felt that in your belly? Feel that in your belly? Really, really good. That felt good. Continue to do that, crew, throughout the day. It will help you. I guarantee that will help you to bring that oxygen into your body, to expand your lung capacity, to feel your belly filling up with air and oxygen and letting that out. And along with that, aligned with that, you're sort of breathing in all of that good stuff, the messaging that we have to be responsible for, right? And breathing out the negative messaging. Good morning. Tamara's on. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining the show. Good morning, Marcia. Thanks for joining the show. Listen, this is the Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. Do me a favor. Give me your thumbs up. Give me your hearts, your smiley faces. Come on, join the YouTube. We are there on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We're not on IG today, so go on over to YouTube or Facebook. If you haven't joined our YouTube page, it's Ask Dr. Argie, AskDrArgie. And hit the notification bell, right? That way you'll know when the things are that we put out there, all the good content that we're putting out there. You'll know when that happens, and you'll know when I'm also doing workshops and seminars and things like that. Okay. So listen. All right. We are having a conversation. Yesterday, I asked everyone to get gritty, right? And so if you're not on, if you weren't on yesterday, I want you to think about that today, right? What does your grit look like? How do you get gritty? Gritty allows us to sort of get through the next level. And all week we're talking about struggling well. So I want to share what a few of you in the crew said yesterday about getting gritty, right? Your grit. So Michelle Jackson, she's not on today, my soror, she said that getting gritty, it was an acronym, GRIT, right? So grit, her G stood for growth, the R stood for revelation, the I stood for intuition, and the T stood for temperance, right? Roger Laseth was on yesterday, and he said his grit stood for get right into it, which I absolutely love, right? I love that. I had started out saying grit stood for, my grit was grateful and gracious. Well, I changed it to grateful, but I like both of them. So grateful and gracious. The R stood for resilience. The I stood for innovative, and the T stood for tenacious, right? So that I'm gracious and grateful. I'm also resilient, and I'm innovative. Like the innovative part of me has been on fleek lately, just because I've been utilizing this time to think about how we can scale with our business and how we can help more people. And then we're just tenacious. And then BJ texted me a little bit later in the day, and she said that her grit was grateful, resilient, independent, and trusting her process. And y'all remember I said that we can turn pain into power if we appreciate the process. So for those of you, for Tamara and Marcia and Angie, anybody that was not on yesterday, Michael or Larissa, tell me what your grit stands for. I wanted everyone to come up with an acronym that was speaking to them, speaking to their movement, speaking to their life, and speaking to them leaning in to their ability to live their life on purpose, in purpose, and with purpose, quite frankly, right? And so tell us what your grit is. Think about it, and how are you getting gritty? Getting gritty allows you to move to the next level. Getting gritty allows us to deal with what we're dealing with right now with those two pandemics and the upward tick in violence, along with these cases where we're kind of in a hot spot. There's some hot spots around this COVID-19. That's what that reminds us of. How are we getting gritty with it? The other thing is that today, right, we are specifically talking about the art of resetting our mindset, right? So what does that look like? As I look in the chat, I want to hear from your stories about what are you getting gritty about? How are you identifying your grit? And I also want you to call somebody and text somebody and say, what's your grit? How are you doing with your grit? That's going to allow us to kind of move through and lean in. But as we think about the art of resetting our mindset, I want y'all to think about a few things, right? And I see you, Larissa. Larissa says grit. Her grit stands for grateful, rejoicing, inspiring, and trusting. I love it. Grateful, rejoicing, inspiring, and trusting. Think about that. I mean, these are interconnected parts, right? So every single day when we're on here on the Quarantine Talks, we kind of weave in our Monday talk to our Wednesday talk to our Thursday talk, right? And so yesterday when we were talking about grit, what your grit is, we also were talking about, what's your silver lining? How are you taking this experience and moving it into living your life on purpose, with purpose, and in purpose, right? How are you doing that? And part of that is sort of your mindset, resetting your mindset, the art. It really is an art to reset your mindset. And when I think about hitting the reset button, I think about, in full transparency, like, what does that look like in terms of restoring? So think about these terms, these words. Reset means to restore, right? It means to refuel. It means to rejuvenate. It means to recalibrate. And it means to repair and reclaim, right? All of those things are a part of our reset. Restoration, refueling, rejuvenating, recalibrating, repairing, and reclaiming. Larissa says grateful, rejoicing, inspiring, and trusting. And Tamara says grateful, reflective, inward, and tenacious. Those are her grit. That's her grit, right? And so that's why I wanted you all to think about your grit. I see you, Mama Stokes. Nicole's on. Good morning and welcome. I wanted you all to use that as a point of power. I want you to use it as a point of connection, right? And a touch point, a human touch point. How do we in our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins, and you can create a crew around you, how do we use this grit to connect with one another? And as the foundation for how we lean into not just our survival, but how do we lean into our thrival, right? Our the way in which we thrive. None of us just wants to survive. Have you talked to people and you say, how you doing? And they say, oh, I'm too blessed to be stressed, or, I'm just hanging on. Who wants that? Who wants to just be hanging on? So Tamara says, inward meaning, the art of resetting on the inside and allowing the reset to be reflective on the outside. Absolutely, Tamara, 100, 1000%. Angie says her grit is grateful, reflective, independent, and tenacious, right? So the next time she thinks about grit, right, and she shares that or asks somebody else, how you doing with your grit? She's going to think about, I'm grateful. I'm also reflective, independent, and tenacious. Karen says her grit is grateful, resilient, intentional, and tough, right? That's going to get her through, right? This is getting gritty, y'all. You have to do that sometimes when you're in the midst of a storm, right? We said before, the storm is meant to correct us, constrict us, connect us, and sometimes even change us, right? And if it's meant to do all those things, we got to get gritty. We got to use our grit to usher us onto the other side. Dr. Gail is on. Good morning, Dr. Gail. She says, my grit is best believe ethical service and treatment, right? It's best believe ethical service and treatment. I love it. And Tamara says, I love intentional thought, right? Intentional and tough, right? Because we are tough, right? If you listen to sometimes Governor Cuomo's, his debriefings, he's still doing those, or his briefings, and he always talks about New York being tough. By the way, New York, they're grittier than ever, right? And they stuck with it, and they were consistent with bringing their numbers down. And over the weekend, they had no deaths, and they had very few cases, I think under 200 cases. And this is a big, big place where most of people are coming in from other parts of the world. They were the epicenter of this COVID-19, and they stuck with it, and they brought it down. Someone is saying that they cannot hear me. Charlotte's saying I cannot hear you. Tell me, other people, is it on my end or is it in Charlotte's end? I want to hear from other crew members. Can you guys hear me? I've got my mics on for right now, and I don't see where I'm muted. So let me know if you can hear me, whether it's Charlotte or whether it's on my end. There's one person in the crew that says that she cannot hear. So I'm just going to keep talking until you all tell me if you all can hear me or not. I want to hear, and now that we've talked about our grit getting here. Okay, Tamara says she can hear me perfectly fine. So Charlotte, see if there's something on your end where you might be able, and Karen says she can hear me too. And Todd's on. Hey, Todd, welcome to the show. I hear you clearly, Todd says. Awesome, awesome. So Charlotte, see if it's something on your end where you might not be able to hear. Billy Joe says she can hear me, and Stephanie's on. Hi, my friend, Dr. Logan. She's speaking to Dr. Logan. Awesome, awesome. So most people can hear me right now on Facebook, and I think Charlotte, you're on Facebook too. So there may be something on your end. So listen. So everyone here is on here. Nicole says she can hear me as well. Welcome to the show. This is the Courageous Conversations Connect space, Quarantine Talks. Laresa's on, Stephanie, Angie, BJ, Reverend Todd Townsend is doing the darn thing in his community in Delaware. So I watch you some mornings, Sunday mornings, Reverend Todd. Sydney's on. Good morning, Sydney. Charlotte as well. Mama Stokes is on, and Karen and Angie. All of you guys, Larissa, Marcia, Michael Brown, Darlene. Good morning, Darlene Robinson. I want to just make sure that I give everybody a shout out, and make sure for those people who are just coming on, the exercise of today, which is kind of rolled in from yesterday, was, are you gritty? Like, let's get gritty. And what does that actually look like? And what I ask people to do, as opposed to me giving you an overall universal acronym, I said that when I think about my grit stands for gracious and grateful, right? I took two G's. Then the T is for, or the R is for resilient. The I is for innovative, and the T is for tenacious, right? That's my grit. That's the way that I empower myself to get through, empowered to get through and grow through to the other side. And other people have been sharing their grit. And what I want to ask you to do today and throughout the weekend until we get back here on Monday, is I want to ask you to call somebody up, text them and say, how you doing with your grit? Are you being gritty? And then encourage them to give themselves an acronym that lifts them up and empowers them to grow through this experience that we're dealing with these two pandemics of COVID-19 and this racial unrest, and now the elevated levels of crime and violence, right? So everyone has been saying, what is their grit? It was me. Charlotte said it was her. All right, awesome. What is your grit? How are you utilizing your grit to empower you? And then specifically today, the art of resetting your mindset. How do you reset your mindset? Because these we talk about in the book, in Courageous Conversations Connect Space, right? A pathway to reset your mindset with intentional thoughts from the inside out. And for those of you who are just joining, we're talking about what is really resetting. What does it really look like to hit that reset button, right? Especially if you're having a bad day or if you're struggling. And many of us have been struggling with stressors, whether it be stressors of loneliness or stressors of being overwhelmed or stressors of from working from home, stressors of just kind of not knowing what's going to happen. So it's been elevating our anxiety. For those of you who have children and you're thinking about, do I send my kids back to school, whether it's college or daycare or grade school, or do I try to homeschool them and then they're pissed at me because they want to go back to school? How do we manage to have both those courageous conversations, and how do we reset our mindset? Well, first we begin to restore ourselves. We do the necessary things to restore. We do the necessary things to refuel. We do the necessary things to rejuvenate ourselves so that we can recalibrate, kind of say, let's stop. Let's kind of put the brakes on and start recalibrating, assessing where we were back in March, where we are now, and where we're going. And then we begin to repair. Sometimes repairing, it could be relationships where we realize, hey, I've been a little snappy. I've been a little bit distant. I've been withdrawn. I've been kind of agitated. Let me try to work on acknowledging that and repairing that relationship, or repairing the relationship with yourself. Quite frankly, saying I've not been that great to myself. I haven't done my exercising or drank enough water or set a schedule for myself or done the necessary things, maybe because I've felt a little blue, but begin that reparation process. And then the last part of the reset is to reclaim you, reclaim where you're at in this moment, reclaim how you are, designed to live your life on purpose, and that there's an assignment and a calling on your life that allows you to do the necessary things in this moment so that you grow through this, as I always say, better, not bitter. Stephanie Morris is on. Thank you for joining, Stephanie. She says, my grit is grin. Godly reception is necessary. I must first seek spiritual harmony with my creator. I love it. So for you, Stephanie, it's like this vertical elevation to your source and focusing on receiving. I think I said yesterday, my good friend and my husband's friend, we actually knew this person before we met each other. His name is Chris Pender. And when I was in class with him many, many years ago, he said, don't allow your reception or your perception to screw up your reception, right? Our perception is our mindset. And sometimes if we block ourselves from all the good things that are there for us, then we allow our perceptions to screw up our reception. What are the good things? And that was speaking to yesterday when we were talking about silver linings. I want to hear your stories as well. What are the good things that can be a silver lining? Have you grown in your prayer life? Have you grown in your spiritual life? Have you grown in your relationship because you've spent time reflecting on what you do have versus what you don't have? Have you grown in the area of not only self-reflection, but self-empowerment? Have you realized that in the beginning of this thing, you were fearful about the unknown and fearful about what was going to happen, fearful about whether or not you might get sick or not, or someone that you love? Maybe if we're all going to be honest, I imagine that we were all in a state of fear, right? We were all feeling like we miss us with this, right? This whole COVID-19, this pandemic, this unknown, all this misinformation. A lot of us had a lot of fear that was resonating inside of us that was contributing to our stress. And if you're not sitting around paralyzed by fear, that's something to really be grateful for, that you've actually moved the mark from your fear zone, as I call it, to your learning zone, right? There's a grid, and I'll post it later, that talks about where do you want to be in this midst of COVID-19. in a state of fear, in your fear zone, or have you moved to learning zone? Did you learn what you needed to learn about yourself and others that allowed you to have a sense of calm? Are you doing your meditation and your mindfulness or movement or meaningful engagement? Are you using music to be peaceful and, create serenity for you? All those things are things that we can learn to help us. And then that moves us to the growth zone. How many of you all are in the growth zone now, where you're actually looking at yourself and you are growing and you are moving to a place where you're not just surviving, you're not just in a place of survival, but you are thriving, right? Who knew that many of us could actually thrive in the midst of a pandemic? It is possible. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have sadness or that you don't have anxiety or you don't have fear. I'm not trying to suggest that you stuff those things and act like they don't exist, because they do exist. What I'm suggesting is that you acknowledge them, normalize them, and then pivot and go to the place of empowerment yourself. Does that make sense, guys? So acknowledge them, then move, then pivot, get to a healthier place, if you will. So tell me, what are the ways in which you have encountered your reset mindset? Are you still where you used to be, at a place of fear, or have you moved to a place of learning? So listen, I want to read something to you from Courageous Conversations Connect. It's really interesting because I talked this morning to a group called The Gift of Life, and I didn't read this excerpt to them, but it was because I didn't really have enough time to unpack it. But I thought it was very powerful that I'm talking to a group called Gift of Life, and I have a chapter in here. It's week 4. I won't read the whole thing, but it's called The Gift of Life. And I think it's very paramount when you're thinking about the art of resetting your mindset. When you reset your mindset, you're thinking about yourself, you being a gift. So listen to this and tell me what, and Tyrone said, that makes sense. Thanks for that advice. Awesome. Thanks for joining, Tyrone. So listen to this. This is week 4, Courageous Conversations, and it's called The Gift of Life. And it says, each day we wake up, we have another opportunity to either count every day or make every day count. Why do we often choose the former as though making every day count is not an option? Do you find yourself getting paralyzed with negative thoughts that only focus on what you don't have versus what you do have? Sometimes life can get pretty overwhelming, even for myself. It's not so complicated though. For me, I say, because I woke up, that's just for me, God has given me another opportunity to live life to its fullest. And since my time is short here on this planet, remember, we only have a dash. It's to figure out that I might as well make life count. How about you? That is the question. Do you want to make life count? You can choose to enjoy this journey with we call life, or get stuck in the regrets from the past, worry in the present, or fear of the unknown. So I like to say, let's start today with appreciating the most important gift of all, your life. You only get one here on earth, and there is no dress rehearsal. So get off the sidelines and get in the game. Now, here's my call to action to you guys, right? The call to action is on the other side. Here's my call to action. Are you guilty of focusing on the negative aspects of your life? Many of us are. If so, are you open to a new paradigm shift by taking all the lessons learned from your past mistakes and harnessing them as an opportunity to share love, give, and enjoy life with human touch points? How are your human touch points? We're in this crew together, right? Connecting relationships for epic wins. My expectation is that when you're connecting with your human touch points, that you'll call somebody up or you text them and you'll say, how's your grit coming? Are you gritty? Are you utilizing your grit to empower you, right? And then lastly, list your mistakes that you want to learn from. Then make a list of the ways those lessons have lessons as gifts to help someone else. By doing this, you simply make a decision to give humanity the best gift you have to offer you. Remember, What you put out in the universe will not return void. Embrace your best life now in abundance. So, the gift, how are you doing with it? The greatest gift that you have, and we're talking about this art of resetting our mindset, greatest gift you have is you. Even in the midst of all of this, how are you dealing? How are you dealing with the gifts that you have? Are you sharing them? Are you embracing them? Are you spreading them? There's some folk that are super spreaders, right? And they're super spreading some other stuff. Are you spreading the gift of love, right? We're going to come back and talk about that. So think about your story. How are you spreading your gift? Are you using grit? And stay with us. We're going to be right back. We'll take a quick break from our sponsors. Stay with us. About tools. So, hey, this is Dr. RG here. This is the Courageous Conversations Connect space. We're having our quarantine talks. This is our, almost 60th day episode. This is our 18th week in quarantine. And we're talking about basically the gift of life, right? And the art of resetting our mindset. And I was just asking our IG family, how are they doing with that? How are you doing with your greatest gift that you have? I think sometimes we don't realize that. We don't think about how it is that we're utilizing our gift. Our gift is a tool. It's a way in which God has given us something great to offer the world, right? And most of us have to ask ourselves, if we've been sitting on the sidelines, why? Why are we sitting on the sidelines? And how can we get in the game? So I want to hear from you. From your story. How have you gotten it? This is my community give back. This is for Morgan and I. This is the way that we have gotten in the game and done things beyond our, work life in terms of doing therapy to just give part of what God has given us in order to create this hopefully safe space to process all of our fears, our anxieties, our hopes, our wishes, our dreams, our abilities, if you will. We are greater than we realize oftentimes, and sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for the grit that we have. So how are you using your tools? How are you using your grit? Everyone has put in the chat, most of us. Ty, if you're still on, tell me what your grit is. Grit stands for me, being grateful and gracious. It stands for resilient, innovative, and tenacious. Tell me what your grit is. And tell me if you did yesterday, if you just reached out to someone and says, how you doing with your grit? Are you gritty? Are you using yourself as a gift to the world? And to the point that I just read, some of us think about, are we counting every day or making every day count? Every single day is another opportunity for us to breathe, and we're breathing, right? And we have the activity of our limbs. We're in our right minds for the most part, right? How are you using that as an opportunity? Because we know, just like I said, I was praying for the Crawford brothers. I'm praying for those 6 babies that were killed during July 4th weekend, all those persons that have been unarmed and killed, and the death rate is up for COVID in certain hotspots. Also, the death rate and crime rate is up in certain urban areas and in certain areas, period. So we know for sure that in this life, tomorrow is not promised. How are you using your gift of life today? How are you using it to inspire? How are you using it to motivate? How are you using it to celebrate? How are you using it to empower, right? Empower, motivate, inspire, celebrate. Every single day, I'm putting my 110% in to this thing called life and humanity, to have human touch points. Even though we can't necessarily hug each other physically, we can give each other a virtual hug, give each other a virtual hug and have human touch points that allow you to know that you're better off for having encountered someone and they're better off for having encountered you. What are you doing to help humanity to be better in the midst of this storm? Because we are in a storm, and y'all know I'll often say that our storms are meant to what? They're meant to correct us, constrict us, connect us, sometimes change us, right? All of those, storms kind of clear out the atmosphere. And many of us, quite frankly, are in the middle of a storm, moving out of a storm, or going into a storm. That's the thing. But guess what? Here is the silver lining. Rainbows come after a storm. Angie says, I text a good morning message to my family and friends every day. Have done that since quarantine started. I love that, Angie. I love that because you're doing the human touch points. And Reverend Todd Townsend says, my grit is greatness requires internal tenacity. I love that. I want to say that again, Reverend Dr. Todd Townsend. Greatness requires internal tenacity. And if you guys haven't gone on to Dr. Todd Townsend's platform, please do so. He's got some amazing messages for you. And he's there on Sunday morning, him and his wife doing their ministry as well. And Cynthia says her grit stands for generosity or generous, resilient, intuitive, and I can't find a T. She said, help, laugh out loud. So you'll get your T. It's up to you to think through that and then let us know what your T is, right? Because it has to be what resonates for you. But I love that too. Generous, resilient, intuitive. And then she's working on the T. Listen, guys, getting gritty helps us. Going deeper helps us. Being resilient helps us to not stay stuck, right? We don't want to get paralyzed in a place where, we're not moving. Let's lean in to humanity. Let's lean in to our healing. This is our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins, right? And one of the things that we know is that we are strong, resilient people. We are gritty people. Sometimes we forget because life gets hard and we get stressed out and we get overwhelmed and we get paralyzed by everything that's going on. But one thing I know for certain and two for sure, that our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins, we are strong. We are more powerful beyond measure. And when we finally dig in, we realize that we can turn pain into power when we appreciate the process, then the best is yet to come, right? The best is yet to come. And so I don't know, share for our crew, if you all will, share your story about what it looks like for you to have utilized the gritty side of you in order to grow through to the other side. Are you using your gifts? Did you get paralyzed, right? I mean, there's moments when I get paralyzed. There's moments where I'm struggling with stuff. It really does help me to do the therapy every day because I feel like I'm utilizing my God-given gifts to help other people to heal in the midst of these storms. But at the same time, it can be challenging, right? It can be challenging for all of us. And so sometimes, quite frankly, it can even be helpful if you're able to share the part of your story where you say, listen, like, I don't have it all figured out. Sometimes I get stuck. Sometimes I get paralyzed. Sometimes I don't want to move. But then I remind myself, this is what I remind myself, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And so when I remind myself of those things, then I realize that, I can stretch toward the high mark. I can continue to stretch myself in ways that I didn't even realize and utilize those touch points, those human touch points to connect us in a way that allows us to be elevated in love and light. Dr. Gail says, I have to believe in myself and my purpose. I have to know that the direction that I'm going, and before I can help someone to know their own. Absolutely, right? That speaks to putting our oxygen mask on first. Some of us that are helpers, what we really are, and I think that Dr. Gail, Dr. Townsend, Tyrone, some of those persons that are in that space of helping, right? We know that we're just wounded healers, right? We're wounded healers. We're the people that go into the fire first. We're firefighters. We don't shy away from the drama, from the pain, from the uncertainty, from the fear. We don't shy away from it. We go into it, right? But then we've got to also reset our mindsets. We got to refuel. We got to repurpose. We got to kind of step back and kind of rejuvenate and revitalize ourselves so that we can actually recalibrate and reclaim what it is that is rightfully ours. And what is it that is rightfully ours is to live a full and abundant life, right? But it starts with what you think. So, our thoughts can sometimes make us or break us. And that's why I wanted to talk today about the art of resetting our mindsets, or reset your mindset, right? Because we may have to push the reset button on a daily basis, moment to moment, minute to minute, day to day, month to month. It requires an ongoing process to keep resetting, right? Resetting in a way that allows us to keep elevating, moving to a higher plane, a higher plateau, moving to a place, quite frankly, that allows us to access the fullness and the joy, even in the midst of this pandemic, these pandemics and this uncertainty. What I'm typing. That's okay. Gail says, sorry, you can't see what I'm typing. It's okay. No worries. Dr. Gail, I got it. There is a song that I mentioned yesterday called, hear a little of the lyrics. Joy and pain is like sunshine and rain, right? And we need both. We don't get to live in this world, this place called life, without having some joy and some pain. Just like we don't get to live in this life without having some sunshine and some rain. And there's benefit, there's value to both of them. So when you're thinking about resetting your mindset, when you're thinking about how you're harnessing all of the gifts that you have inside of you, right? When you're thinking in your mind about how do I utilize those gifts, those resources to help other people, then, that's where you have the touch point, the human touch points. And Tyrone says, I've learned to be grateful in every moment. And this requires a lot of discipline on my part. I make an effort to be vulnerable with others and to check in on them daily. My GRIT stands for gentleness, resilience, informed, and tender-hearted. I love it. I'm going to say hers again. Gentleness, resilience, informed, and tender-hearted. This allows me to offer compassion to others. I have to remember that people are broken and they require gentleness and compassion to help get them to a place of healing. Love, love, love that, Tyrone, because that's true. Like, I don't know anybody on the face of this planet that does not have some form of brokenness. That is a part of our lived and shared experience in humanity, right? And if we can remember that hurt people, and people are coming from their place of brokenness, then that can allow us to tap into the more vulnerable side of them and tap into the more empathic side of us that makes a connection. Larissa Tate says, I get concerned, but not fearful. God's word renews my mind. It tells me not to fear. He is with me. He will help me and strengthen me. That gives me hope. I love it. Hope, right? Y'all know what I tend to say. Love, light, truth, and accountability equals hope and freedom, right? And so what Larissa Tate says is so, so true when we think about how God can give us those gifts, right? We're here on purpose. There's no doubt about it, because anything could have been called off, and yet we're still here. We have now 5 months into this pandemic, going on 6 months, and anything could have happened to us, and we're still here. So if we are here, why not utilize that as a resource? What's your grit? How are you using it? Are you getting gritty? And are you resetting your mindset with intentional thoughts from the inside out in order to move you to the next level? How do you reset your mindset, right? You restore, you refuel. All of us need a respite, right? You restore, you refuel, you kind of step back from it to allow yourself to rejuvenate, then recalibrate, And then ultimately in the repair process, right, you reclaim your best life so that you can use it for good, not for bad, not for evil. The rest it says, I get concerned, but not fearful. God's word renews my mind. It tells me not to fear. He is with me. He will help me and strengthen me. That gives me hope. I got it. I love it. I love it. And Angie says, I love Rob Bates, Joy and Pain. That's Rob Bates. Thank you for helping me with the artist. And remember, you know, I've always said, like, in this time, we have to listen to music that is healing, do our mindfulness and meditation, you know, have some movement, get our juices flowing, because our stress levels are typically elevated. When our stress levels are elevated, that elevates our cortisol levels and our adrenaline levels. For most of you who are, you know, maybe are looking into your health and well-being, mental health and physical health, you know that when you're operating with an elevated level of cortisol hormones as well as adrenaline, it's not good for you. It's not good for any of us. We're not meant to operate like we're in a fight 24/7. Yet the truth is we may be in a fight 24/7, right? So we need to do things to like decrease those levels, those hormonal levels, and increase the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin, be able to move to a place where our parasympathetic nervous system is readjusted so that our ecosystem is functioning at a more optimal level. Those are some clinical or scientific terms, but most importantly, what we know for sure is oxygen mask on first, right? Look for the silver lining. Focus on what you do have versus what you don't have, right? Do your mental health check-in. Ask yourself, how am I doing? How am I doing with my grit? Throughout the whole entire weekend, that's what I want you to ask yourself. How am I doing with my grit? Am I gritty enough, right? Am I managing my stress in healthy ways? Can I look at the silver lining and see that the benefit of that? And am I on as Tyrone said, sometimes moment to moment or minute to minute, am I figuring out ways to reset my mindset with intentional thoughts from the inside out? If you guys haven't gotten this book, it's a great book for right now. Courageous Conversations Connect, right? A pathway to reset your mindset with intentional thoughts from the inside out, right? And you literally go through, many of my clients are using it as a companion. You can go through not just 1 week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks right now if you have a little bit more time, but it was designed to do 52 weeks, right? A full year. Every single week, you have a different courageous conversation, one of which I read today, a little excerpt of it. That was week 4, The Gift of Life. And then I give you a call to action. As a therapist, I'm always giving people calls to action. Okay, now that we process this information, this material, what can we do with it? How can we move you forward? The last thing you want to do in therapy is just have a nice conversation, but you're not getting to where you need to be. So in the book, I give people calls to action. Make sure that you do the one for week 4 that we talked about. Write that list of the things that you actually have not done so well, right? Errors that you made or injuries or things during this period of COVID that you feel like you've kind of made some mistakes. Write them down, acknowledge them, and then use them as lessons learned as you move forward, as you get grittier, as you figure out how to utilize your gifts of life to have that human touch point, right? And then again, if you go through the book, you'll get to the other side because the last chapter is specifically about how do I live my best life now, right? Yesterday I read enough. When you feel like you've had enough, when you feel like enough is enough, you might get to the place where you feel like you recognize that you are more than enough, right? And so much of that has to do with what we do with ourselves. As Dr. Yale said, you can't help anyone else if you're not able to help yourself. We need to friend ourselves. You know, think about social media, right? Everybody's friending someone, right? You're asking for somebody's friendship, if you will. Well, as from where I sit, sometimes we're not so kind to ourselves. We don't do a great job of friending ourselves. And so this weekend, make it your commitment to friend you. Make it a commitment to be kind to you. Make it a commitment to elevate you and do the necessary things to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can be healthy. And the healthier you are, the healthier you can be to someone else. Dr. Todd Townsend said, just ordered the book on Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. Awesome. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Todd Townsend. And please tell Dr. Cleo Townsend that Dr. RG said hello. I miss you guys. I'm giving you a big virtual hug from Philadelphia. And one day I can't wait for Morgan, my husband, to meet the two of you. It's been a long time since we touched base. And certainly, again, thank you so much, Todd, for all that you're doing in your ministry, you and Cleo. I do watch some of your sermons on Sunday morning because you actually come on pretty early before I sign on to Ina. And so I appreciate that. Cynthia Mead says, I will order it today. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I appreciate that as well. I think it'll be a wonderful way, this book, to help you move your health and well-being forward, but also move the conversations forward that you're needing to have. Like I said, there's many people that are still anxious, and it's understandably so, right? For our IG family, for our Facebook family, for our YouTube family, think about how you are connecting even on this platform. I want us to be, we believe in being truth, trust, and transparency leads to transformational breakthroughs. So if we're honest here in our quarantine talks with our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins, then hopefully we bring more people onto this platform. And that's the goal. We want to expand the platform. So we want you to tell other people, bring next Monday, we're on every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. Bring a couple friends onto the platform. Share this post with them or this video with them. Tag them. Let them know that we're here. We're creating this safe space to talk about very, very important issues. I think that is helpful to our mental health and our well-being. And it's essential, right? We are essential people out there, no matter what you're doing. You may be essential in your community or essential with your family, but you matter. We matter, and we are essential. And so the healthier that we can be, and this is a platform that allows us to do that, the healthier that our communities can be. If you know somebody that's interested in therapy, have them reach out. They can call Dr. RG at Connect, or they can call 215-789-6999, or they can reach out to contact us at connectionsmatterllc.com. If they're looking for therapy, they can also, like you said, Dr. Todd ordered the book on Amazon. You can order it on Amazon, or you can reach out to drrgconnects.com, get it directly from us as well. And look out for the notifications. If you go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube page, you can get all the notifications of the things that we're doing in this space. We're doing workshops, seminars, we're leading discussions on courageous conversations, and we're doing just a lot of things to help people in our humanity. Angie said, excited to order. I found you when you were on the Mel Robbins show. Oh, thank you, Angie, and I appreciate your support. My husband appreciates your support. Mel Robbins is a really wonderful friend. We've been having some courageous conversations. She'll probably come back on, I'm sure, to engage us in a courageous conversation. She was on a couple of weeks ago, and we'll probably repost that because it was a great conversation about how to have these dialogues with our white allies to move the needle with regards to racial unrest and systemic racism and social injustices. And so she's a wonderful person. I love her, and she has become a friend of Morgan and myself. And so thank you for reaching out, for joining this platform, and for continuing to support us. Listen, we're going to take a quick break from our sponsors and give you some information about our programs, and then we're going to come right back. When we come back, we're going to end it with sharing an exercise together that'll allow us to move into the weekend. So stay with us.
We bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. RG Allen Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. RG Allen Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, RG.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one.
And it's Dr. RG here. This has been the Courageous Conversations Connect space, our quarantine talks on July 16th. We are 18 weeks into quarantine. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. on YouTube, on Facebook, on IG. We are here as a part of the crew, connecting relationships for epic wins, to have a courageous conversation with you all. And so share it with your friends, tag them, text them, let them know, ask them over the weekend, how is their grit? How are they doing with their grit? Ask yourself, am I gritty, right? Am I moving myself to a higher place in my mental health and my well-being? And I promised you the exercise as we wrap up for this segment, for this last part of the show. I want you to repeat after me. So let's get centered for all those that are still on the show. Let's get centered. And I want you to repeat after me. I want you to close your eyes, get centered. We're going to rock out, this show in style with all of us communing together. So close your eyes and I want you to repeat after me. Today, I'm going to get gritty and cut myself some slack that allows me to be better and not bitter. I'm going to say that one more time. Today, I'm going to get gritty and cut myself some slack that allows me to be better and not bitter. Guys, cut yourself some slack. Y'all know the slack stands for how are we showing up? Are we listening, learning, and leading? Are we acknowledging what we've been through? Are we committed to the health and well-being of ourselves, our families, and our communities? And ultimately, are we kind? Cut yourself some slack. Listen, this has been a great show. I thank you for staying with us and helping us in this crew to reset our mindsets. And I love you guys. There's nothing you can do about it. So thank you for joining me. We will see you on Monday at 10 a.m. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Have a beautiful day from my heart to yours.